as early as June to get into that issue and to address that and talk through the complexity of why it's so difficult to say this is specifically when we can get you the number and what the number is. So I believe we are committed. We are committed to a special meeting with the committee to try to go through this particular issue. But I cannot give you a date because an end number because I understand the complexity of it now and why it's so difficult for Admiral Rogers to say this specific number is the number.
I'm well over my time. The point really is privacy advocates and technologists say that it's possible to get the number. If they say it and the government is not saying it, something is really out of sync. You've got people who want to work with you. We must get on with this and to have a real debate about 702 that ensures that security and liberty are not mutually exclusive. We have to have that number. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator King, I understand you had a...
Thank you, Senator. If this hearing had been held 2 weeks ago, we'd be spending the last 2 hours talking about North Korea. And I think we ought to pay some attention to that. Director Pompeo and Director Cardillo, could you give us an update on the North Korea situation, the nature of the threat, whether some of the pressure that we were feeling 2 and 3 and 4 weeks ago has relieved? Is there anything going on that should either concern or make us feel better about that situation? Director Pompeo.
Senator, I don't see anything that should make any of us feel any better about this threat. We have a threat from flashpoints that something could spark and have a conventional war, right, wholly apart from the issues we talk about with ICBMs and nuclears. It's a well-armed adversary that our Department of Defense works hard to make sure and mitigate against. Those risks remain. The leader continues to develop, test, attempt to verify, not only in the launches that we see, many of which have failed, but learned from each one, but continues to develop software that improves day by day. This threat is very real. We should not focus simply on the ICBMs either. American interests are held at risk today by shorter range missiles in theater, enormous American assets.
Seoul is held at risk by artillery.
Seoul is held at risk. We have enormous American interests in and around the region in Seoul. So no, I wouldn't say that in spite of the fact that it has fallen out of the headlines for the moment, that there's any decreased risk associated with the threat from Kim Jong-un.
There were some discussions after, again, about 2 weeks ago of entering into some kind of discussions with the North Koreans. Is anything, can you report anything on that front?
Sir, there are none that I'm aware of related to trying to talk Kim Jong-un away from his nuclear missile program. We have taken action inside the agency. I've stood up a Korean Mission Center to draw the best minds, the most innovative, creative people from across our agency, and I'm sure we'll have others join in from across the intelligence community to try and focus this effort so that we can get back on our front foot with respect to foreign intelligence collection against the North Koreans and the capacity to impact what Kim Jong-un is actually doing.
On that latter point, would you agree that the path to influence is through China?
I think it's among our most productive paths and one that I know the President's committed to working as a Secretary Tillerson.
Thank you very much. Admiral Rogers, we
Senator
had
King,
yes. Yes, please.
Just chime in. I was in front of you in closed session a couple of weeks ago, giving you great detail about the threat you've just highlighted. What you'll hear this afternoon is just the continuation of what I was briefing a couple of weeks ago. So I would agree with the director that this threat has not only been sustained, it's continued to grow.
Because it's fallen out of the headlines doesn't mean it's not.
That's correct. It's still our highest priority.
It is the highest priority, one of the highest, if not the highest priority of the intelligence community at this time. A great deal of effort is being spent relative to how we can even better assess the situation and provide all the relevant intelligence to our policymakers.
Thank you. Two final questions. Admiral Rogers, the reason I was late this morning, we had a very informative hearing in Armed Services on cyber with Jim Clapper and Admiral Stavridis and General Hayden. The upshot of that hearing was we still don't have a doctrine. We still don't have a policy. We still don't really fully understand. You would concur, I assume, that cyber is one of the most serious threats we face.
Yes, sir.
And do we need to have a policy and a deterrent policy and something further than what we have now, which is kind of an ad hoc response to events?
Right. It tends to be a case-by-case basis.
Yes, sir, I agree. And we spoke about that when I testified before the SASC last week, as a matter of fact. With you.
And Senator McCain said, what's the impediment? Why can't we get there? Is it the structure of our government? We've got too many people thinking about this. What is it going to take to get us to the point of having a doctrine that will guide us in this incredibly important era? We are seeing the nature of warfare change before our eyes.
Sir, I don't have any easy answer for you. My role in life, not speaking now as a director of NSA, but as the commander of the United States Cyber Command, is to be the operational commander. So I don't develop policy. I play a role on the doctrine side, trying to provide an operational perspective.
Well, I hope from your position, though, you would be poking
yes,
the
sir.
administration and everyone you can think of,
Yes,
because I do not want to go home to Maine and say, well, we talked a lot about this, but we didn't do anything. And when the electric system went down, you know, we might have been able to prevent it.
Yes, sir.
Director Pompeo, final question. Do you think that Russian activity in the 2016 election was a one-off?
No, sir.
This is a continuing threat, is it not?
Yes, sir.
And things that they learned in this election, they're going to apply in 2018, 2020, and beyond.
Yes, sir, and I hope we learn from it as well, and we'll be able to more effectively defeat it.
And I believe that's why the work of this committee and others is so important, because we've got to understand what they did, how they did it, so that we can deal with it in the future. Would you agree?
Yes, Senator, I would.
Thank you very much.
Senator King, if I could just add to that, I think making this as transparent as possible, not only to our own public, but throughout democratic nations that are facing this threat. The more we inform our people of what the Russians are trying to do and how they're trying to impact our thinking and our decisions relative to how we want to be governed and what kind of democratic institutions that we want to preserve, the better. So my hope is the Russians have overstepped here to the point where people will say, we absolutely have to do something about it, and we absolutely have to prevent deterrent efforts in place as well as potentially offensive efforts.
Well, I think your point about open hearings and education is incredibly important. You and I were in the Ukraine and Poland just about a year ago, and what they told us over there was that the best defense, they can't shut down their TV networks, they can't turn off the internet. The best defense is if the public knows what's happening and they say, oh, it's just the Russians again. And we have to reach that level of knowledge in this country. So I completely agree and hope that as much of our work as possible can be done in open hearing. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator King. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you all for your service. Thank you to all the men and women of all 17 agencies for the incredible service they provide to the people of the United States, keeping them safe, doing things that most people in America will never know nor be able to fully appreciate. Mr. McCabe, a special thank you for you to stepping up to the battlefield promotion and representing your agency quite well here. This part of the hearing will be adjourned, and gentlemen, you have about an hour and 6 minutes, and we'll see you at the other room. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.